because they have to do two things. They're helping each member to drive the business improvements that also benefit disabled people, but they're also working to leverage the collective influence as a group of private sector organizations in any given country to shape better job markets, to influence public policy. I mean, just logically, job markets which make it needlessly difficult for you to attract and employ talent from the widest possible pool of talent are just inefficient as well as unfair. Time's short. Now we had a 5-minute rule here, right? Have I got it? 6 maybe? Did I? Yeah, I can do 6. Okay. So imagine this as bullets. So first, the business model. The business model for national networks is really quite straightforward. Group of companies joint fund a specialist expert team that makes it easier to deliver the corporate best practice that I called disability confidence some time ago, making it easy to deliver that best practice that also benefits people with disabilities. So that's where that overlap comes together. Joint funding, this capacity building, is always so much cheaper. We call it cost effective. We say cost effective. It's so much more cost effective than a business setting out to do this themselves, looking at customers and technology and, right? What has become very clear is that our focus on where the needs of business and the aspirations of disabled people coincide is really, really effective in that it translates and is readily adapted in any market, in any country. Cultures certainly differ, but business imperatives less so that we see national business disability networks everywhere, enabling customer experience, talent acquisition, workforce productivity, sustainability, better new product development, brand reputation, the list goes on. That's true just about everywhere you go. And it's also true everywhere you go that disabled people want to be welcomed as customers. They want accessible tech. They want to be recruited on the basis of their skills, talents, and aspirations. There's no conflict here between business need and the aspirations of people with disabilities. High-impact business disability networks, and that's what this one's going to be. Help members get the facts. So we heard a few statistics already, but the aim is to understand the impact of disability and your disability performance on the business and the markets in which you're operating. So for example, in the UK, when we set up 100 years ago, we quickly figured out that 1 in 3 customers over 50 have a disability. Now, they don't think they have a disability. They just really don't like stairs, they don't like small print, and they really hate that noisy retail environment. But the point is, we also discovered that 80% of UK wealth is in the hands of the over 45s. So Barclays sussed that and did the math real quick, and we ended up with their global chief executive, John Varley, as our president for 7 years, working to ensure that Barclays was the most accessible bank in the world. HSBC have now taken that on and they claim they are. And so that's a competition we're all watching with considerable amusement. Another little fact, 1 in 5 women have a disability. And so that captured the attention of L'Oreal, right? There's always a dimension to the business rationale here that actually encourages the inclusion of people with disabilities. So what do national networks do? Fundamentally, they're scanning constantly, locally and internationally, for business relevant, ideally business generated resources, case studies, data, insights, champions, messaging. So for example, we would be sharing the Kenya Bankers Association guidance on accessible financial services. How many of you guys have seen the Kenyan Bankers Association stuff? Well, you know, we would just be zapping it out to you on a monthly basis. The New South Wales Gold, Silver, Bronze Standard for the Built Environment, recently accepted by ANZ as the way they're going to procure and lease and purchase property. Have you seen the GSK's global standard? GSK, the global pharma, they've got a global standard for their built environment that has gone out to their more than 100 heads of property, and that's a standard, not guidance, because they're trying to get consistency in terms of how they ensure that their built environment works for everyone they want to bring in. Or the guidance that Barclays shares with their IT suppliers, explaining why Barclays really, really does not want to buy inaccessible tech, and why. And so your procurement guys could just quickly, I don't know, rebrand it, right? The messages are all perfectly sensible. And it starts a new conversation with your suppliers. So the job of the Business Disability Network in South Africa, we have to shorten that one. Let's just say the network. Nobody is going to get confused about which one we mean. The job of a network in South Africa is going to be to save members time, money, and aggravation, while you cost-effectively expedite progress as the team keeps members up to date with what competitors, suppliers, strategic partners, clients, standard setters, regulators are doing, because you haven't got the time, energy, resources to do that yourself. We're going to be helping members mitigate legal and reputation risks because they're going to lift their disability performance above always inadequate local law, local regs, local standards. And so, for example, think updates on the EU accessibility legislation. It's going to be critical for any business wanting to do business in Europe to understand and comply. Or even simply understanding why Sainsbury grocery stores in London don't just tolerate wheelchairs, like it says in law. They actually provide wheelchairs and mobility scooters to customers who then find it easier to spend their money. Well, that's a nice story to be able to tell. Do we have Woolworths here today? Yes. See, that's the kind of story you then take up the line, right? If they do it, they haven't suddenly turned into social worker providers, services. Networks are uniquely placed to harness the collective influence. So I was really pleased to hear the reference to the UK's technology task force, because we're just going to nick their stuff, right? Why would we want to reinvent a maturity model that a CIO can use to get a quick sense of where they're into best practice and where they've got some gaps? And of course, it means that we're not going to reinvent any wheels at all when it comes to IT, because there's a whole raft of toolkits around, whether it's from G3ICT or the technology task force there, or the task force the Australians have created that combines the IT guys with procurement in a way that's actually quite powerful. So, my time must be up. However, the good news is we've got lunch, and I'm really looking forward to the chance to talk through how what we think are the kind of top issues around customer access, because the customer front means when you're removing obstacles for customers, usually you're removing obstacles on employment. The buildings start to work better. Online guys start to go, oh, you mean online shopping should be easier. Maybe we should be looking at the use of technology in recruitment, which is a big issue. And of course, how you respond when people acquire their disabilities while in work. Because that number, 1.3 billion, is people who have disabilities now. I'm afraid everyone in the room is either disabled or not yet. We live long enough, right? Because the stats show if you turn to be 70 in London, and this is quite interesting, in London, if you turn 70 and you're living in the West End, which is where the money is, you're going to have at least 10 years of lived experience of a disability of some kind, disability, chronic health condition. But if you live in the East End, which isn't quite so rich, you'll have 15. So the trick is to live in the West End, is the obvious solution there. However, my point being, we all employ people with disabilities now, even if the board doesn't think we do, right? And that people acquire their health conditions and then you have to make adjustments, and if you just get on with it and do it, you enhance productivity. If you force people to prove they're disabled enough according to a legal definition before you do it, well, you end up really, really, really needing a business network. Thank you very much.